Your AI can have all the context in the world and still make the wrong decision. Because sometimes the problem isn't the AI doesn't have enough information. The problem is you've given it 5 different versions of the truth. An old chat says one thing, your project document says another. The live product is doing something else. And then another AI comes along and confidently gives you a 4th answer. Now, you've got plenty of context, but no clear idea which one should actually control the build. Should actually control the build. And that can be dangerous because AI doesn't automatically know which piece of information is current, which information is old, and which one is an assumption, and which one is actually authoritative, which one has the authority over the build. So in this video, I'm going to show you a simple way to decide what information your AI should trust. What should be treated as context, and what to do when the 2 sources disagree. And by the end, you have a simple 3-part check you can use before you let AI make an important build decision. And them 3 things are source, status, and authority. But before we get into that, let's make it a real problem, yeah? I want you to imagine you're building a feature. You open an old ChatGPT or Claude conversation from a few months ago. It says, users authenticate using method A. Then you open the current project document and that says, users authenticate using method B. You look at the actual product, it appears to be using method B. Then you ask another AI what it thinks, and it tells you method A would probably be better. So now what? We've got a little dilemma. Which one is true? This is where I think people make a really important mistake. They start judging information by how convincing it sounds, or by which answer is easiest to use, or by which AI sounds the most confident. But confidence is not authority, and a well-written answer is not proof. So instead, I want to slow this down and ask 3 simple questions. Source, where did this come from? Status, what state is that information in? And authority, is this source actually allowed to decide the build? Let's start with source. Every important piece of project information came from somewhere. Yeah, that sounds obvious. Yeah, it came from somewhere. But when we're working quickly with AI, it's very easy for the source to disappear. A sentence gets copied from one chat into another. A decision gets repeated three different times. And an AI summarizes something, then another AI reads the summary. And after a while, nobody remembers where the original information came from. So I want to know, where did this information actually come from? Was it an old chat, a current project document, a live test? Was it a screenshot, official documentation, a previous decision, or did an AI simply suggest it? Because those things are not equal. And an old AI answer might still be useful, but it isn't automatically true just because it exists in the project. A current approved project document carries more weight. A live test can tell us what the system is actually doing right now. And current official documentation can tell us how an external tool or platform is supposed to behave. So the first question is, where did this information come from? If we're unable to answer where, we should already be slowing down and being a little bit more careful. The second question is status. What state is the information in? Is it current? Is it old? Is it verified? Is it an assumption? Has it been replaced? Is it still a question? This matters because something can come from a good source and still be out of date. Imagine I have a project document that was correct 6 months ago. Since then, we've changed the overall architecture. The document still exists. It may and might even look official, but it hasn't been updated. It can now send the AI in the wrong direction. So when I look at important project information, I don't just ask, where did this come from? I also ask, is this still current? And I think this is one of the most useful habits you can build. Because old information doesn't usually announce itself as old. It sits there looking just as confident as the new information. That's why state context is so that's why stale context is so dangerous, because it can look like truth. Yeah? All right. That's why it's so dangerous, because it can look like truth. So now we have source, we have status, and then we get to the most important one, authority. Does this information actually have the authority to decide what we do? This is where things become much more clearer. Let's go back to our authentication example. The old chat says method A. The current approved project document says method B. The running project appears to be using method B, and another AI says method A might be better. Those 4 pieces of information are doing different jobs. The old chat is historical context. Useful maybe, but not the current authority. The AI suggestion is an opinion or recommendation. Again, might be useful, but it doesn't get to override the project just because it sounds clever. The current project document tells us what we've decided the system should do. And the live evidence gives us, and the live product gives us evidence about what the system is actually doing now. And this is an important distinction between them. Because a project document can tell us what should happen. A live test can tell us what is happening. A live test can tell us what is happening. And those two things can disagree, okay? And when they do, that's not a reason to pick whichever one we like or we think's gonna work best. That's a reason to stop and investigate, because now we found something important. The system and the intended design might have drifted apart. That disagreement is evidence. So the rule is not always trust the document, and it's not always trust the live system. The rule is know what question each source is allowed to answer. If I want to know what the system is doing right now, I need current evidence. If I want to know what the system is supposed to do, I need the current approved project decision. If I want to know how an external platform works, I should check its current official documentation. And if I want ideas, I can absolutely get help with AI with that. I can absolutely get help from AI with that, yeah? But an idea is not the same thing as authority. That's the part I really want people to remember. AI can suggest, AI can compare, AI can challenge, AI can help us investigate, but it shouldn't quietly promote its own answer above the sources we've already decided control the project. So I'm thinking, let's make this practical. Before I let AI use an important piece of information to make a build decision, I want 3 answers. Where did this come from? What is the current status? And what authority does it have? Source, status, authority. That's the check. That's the 3-part check. So let's run a few quick examples. We've got an old conversation within whatever model you use. I use ChatGPT, you may use Claude or something else. So I'm in an old ChatGPT conversation. The source is an old chat. The status is historical. And the authority is obviously low. Like, the context is useful, but not something I want silently controlling a new build. Current approved architecture document. Yeah? So this is a current approved architecture document now. So the source, project documentation. Status, current. Authority, high for the design, decision it actually covers. Current test from the running product. Yeah? Source, device evidence. Status, current and verified for that exact test. Yeah, that status. Yeah? Authority is very high for telling us what happened in that test. Yeah? But notice the wording I used. It tells us what happened. It doesn't automatically tell us what should happen. And then the next example will be we have an AI answer. So the source is an AI generated response. The status, a suggestion, unless we've independently verified it. The authority, none, especially by none by itself. It can help us think, it can help us think, it can help us search, it can help us challenge a decision, but it doesn't become the truth simply because the answer sounds good or even correct. And this is where I think building with AI gets much safer, because you stop asking, which answer do I like? And you start asking, which source actually has the right to answer this question? That's a completely different way of working. And it gets even more important as your project grows, because over time, you're going to have more chats, more documents, more decisions, more agents, more screenshots, more notes, more history. And if you don't have a clear idea of what is current and what has authority, your project slowly becomes a pile of competing truths. And then every new AI session has to guess. And this is exactly what we don't want. We want the important parts of the project to have clear sources of truth. And when something changes, we want the old version to be replaced, archived, or clearly marked as historical. Not left sitting next to the new version, pretending that they're both equally valid. Excuse me. And here's the operating rule I use. If two important sources disagree, I don't let the AI choose. I stop the build. I work out why they disagree. Maybe the document is old. Maybe the project drifted away from the design. Maybe the test was incomplete. Maybe we changed our mind and never updated the project memory. But until I know which one is correct, I don't want the AI turning that into unnecessary code. Yeah, through that uncertainty. That is a really important loop engineering principle. Don't build through unresolved uncertainty. Resolve the disagreement first, then move. And this is also why project memory matters. The goal isn't just to give AI more documents. The goal is to give AI a clear map of what is trusted, what is current, and what is allowed to control a decision within the build. More context is not always better. Better context is better. Clearer context is better. Current context is better. And the context with a known source and authority is much better than a giant pile of information with no hierarchy. So here's what I want you to do before your next serious AI build. Take one important decision in your project. Maybe it's authentication. maybe it's your data model, maybe it's a user workflow, maybe it's how a payment should behave, then ask 3 questions. Where did this decision come from? Is that information still current? And what gives it authority to control the build? If you're unable to answer those 3 questions, don't ask the AI to build from it yet. Find the sources, check the status, confirm the authority. And if 2 important sources disagree, stop. Don't ask the AI to vote and make a decision. Don't ask which one sounds better. Resolve the disagreement first. That's how I want my projects to work. I don't want AI guessing which version of the truth I meant. I want the project to make that clear before the build starts. Because once we know what we're aiming to achieve, and we know what information we're willing to trust, there's still one more thing we need to do before we start changing the system. We need to look at what already exists. What is working? What is missing? What are we assuming? Where are the risks? And what absolutely should not be touched? That's what we're doing in the next video. We're going to audit before we build.